So we're about to jump into one of the biggest questions you can possibly ask. What is reality? I mean, really, do you think the world around you is just a collection of stuff waiting for us to find it? Or, and this is where it gets interesting, is it possible that the very act of us looking changes everything? Let's find out.
So this is the heart of it all. When you look at a chair, or a tree, or even your own hand, are you seeing something that exists all on its own, completely separate from you? Or does the act of you making that distinction, of you noticing it, actually bring that thing into existence from a sea of potential? This question puts us at a fork in the road, with two totally different ways of understanding reality. And here are those two paths. Path 1, that's the one that feels familiar, right? It's intuitive. The world is already made, it's full of objects, and our job is just to go out and find them. But path 2? That's where things get a little bit wild. It suggests that reality is this formless medium, and we, the observers, are the ones who actually carve it into all the objects we see. Let's start with the one we all know, and explore path 1.
Okay, so this is the classical view, the common sense way of looking at the world. It's really the foundation for how we've thought about physics and, well, existence for centuries. It just feels right, doesn't it?
The key idea here, the really crucial point for Path 1, is that it assumes a world of pre-existing things. A rock is a rock, a planet is a planet, an atom is an atom, and they exist completely on their own, whether or not anyone's there to see them. They have their own built-in boundaries.
So in this ready-made world, our role as observers is pretty straightforward. We're just passive discoverers. You can think of us like cosmic librarians, kind of walking through the aisles of reality, finding the objects that are already on the shelves and just putting labels on them. We don't create the books, we just catalog them.
But, and this is a big but, here's where this comfortable, intuitive worldview starts to run into some serious trouble. Because when we look really, really closely at these supposedly inherent objects, they kind of start to disappear.
Come on, let's do a quick thought experiment together. Pick any object in the room with you right now, your coffee mug, your phone, whatever. It seems solid, right? Distinct and very, very real. But let's zoom in.
So at our normal, everyday scale, you see a solid object, but zoom way in and that one single object just dissolves. It becomes a collection of smaller, separate things, trillions of atoms. Now zoom in even further on those atoms, and they dissolve too. The very idea of a distinct thing with a clear boundary just vanishes into this bizarre, fuzzy field of probabilities. The object you started with? It's gone.
And this leads us to a really critical insight, and this quote says it perfectly. If a distinction vanishes at a different scale, then the object is not real in an inherent, scale-independent sense. Just think about that for a second. If your object isn't an object at every single scale, then it can't be a fundamental part of reality. The conclusion here is pretty much unavoidable. Path 1 collapses.
Okay, so with Path 1 out of the picture, we're kind of forced onto Path 2. And this is the radical idea that reality is something we actively participate in creating. Let's see what that actually looks like.
Now this is a huge shift in thinking. Path 2 says that reality, at its very core, is a generative medium. It has no built-in objects or boundaries. It's like a blank canvas without a painting. It only holds the potential to be shaped.
This slide really just nails the difference. On the left, with Path 1, we were just finding a sculpture that was already hidden inside the marble. But on the right, with Path 2, we are the sculptor. We're the ones who take the formless clay of reality and, just by observing, we give it shape. We are not passive discoverers, we are active agents. We are creators.
So, what does it actually mean to live in a world that we help create? Well, this path has some really profound and honestly pretty strange consequences, especially for how we think about science and knowledge itself.
For starters, it throws a giant wrench into the scientific method. I mean, if we're the ones making the distinctions, how can we ever conduct a truly objective experiment? And this leads us to something called the experimental paradox.
Just take a look at this table. In the classical view, it's simple, right? Your measuring tool is separate from the thing you're studying. One measures the other. Easy. But now, look at the Path 2 view. Here, that separation is just an illusion we create. The observer, the tool, and the thing being studied are all part of a single distinction that we impose on reality. This means the experiment isn't just measuring a fact, it's reflecting the very line we chose to draw in the first place.
And if physical objects are just distinctions that we make, then what about purely abstract ideas?
What about mathematics? The supposed language of the universe. Is that something we discover, or is it something we invent?
Path 2 suggests this fascinating hierarchy. It all starts with one simple distinction. Then, as life gets more complex, it makes more and more distinctions. Eventually, we humans come along and we formalize this whole act of distinction-making, and we call that system mathematics. Now here's the kicker. This means math isn't some universal law we just stumbled upon. It's the language we invented to describe our own actions. And if that's true, it means math can only ever be a powerful, but in the end, an approximate description of reality.
So after going down these two very different roads, where does all this leave us? Well, it leaves us with a really profound and necessary lesson about the nature of knowledge itself. The big takeaway here is a concept called epistemological humility. It's kind of a fancy term, but it's for a simple, powerful idea: being honest about the limits of what we know. It's about recognizing the difference between what we can truly know and what we can only believe. It's about understanding that our map of the world is not the world itself.
This new worldview gives us a whole new set of rules for how to think. First, it tells us that our knowledge depends on the scale we're looking at. What's true up close might not be true from far away. Second, it reminds us that we are never separate from the systems we observe. The observer is always part of the experiment. Our descriptions are powerful approximations, sure, but they are never the absolute truth. And finally, it forces us to be honest about that line between what we can prove and what we just assume, to really balance our beliefs with our knowledge.
And that brings us to our final thought. If reality isn't a fixed set of objects, but a canvas on which we, the observers, draw the very lines that create the world we experience, well, that's an incredible responsibility, but it's also an incredible power. So the question I'll leave you with is this: if we're the ones drawing the lines, where should we draw the line next?